This is the new Ride1Up Roadster V3. This bike was built with several upgrades over its predecessor to make it more versatile while still keeping the lightweight, pedal-friendly approach that the previous model was known for. Now today, we're gonna look under the hood and see what Ride1Up has done and determine if the bike is worthy of being your next ride. Welcome all my e-bike loving friends to Electric Bike Report. I'm Griffin, and whether you're new to the channel or returning, make sure to subscribe. We have the most detailed testing around, and we've got a lot of e-bike projects in the works, so don't miss out. We'll cover a lot today as we've done a lot of testing with the Roadster V3 here, but let me lead off with my top impressions. So this latest version of the Roadster has a bit more juice to it. This model has been equipped with the Mevice hub motor. It's a 500 watt, 50 Newton meter hub motor that runs off a newly designed torque sensor. I was very happy with how this motor did. It is quiet, but really helps the bike move as it can help you reach fast speeds, and as a bit of a spoiler alert, it broke new ground in our hill test. Arguably the best quality though is its feel. Mid-drive motors are the drive units we often celebrate for their natural feel, but the way Ride1Up was able to dial in the engagement of this hub motor with their new Intuidrive system was just frankly stellar. They said some of the engineers of this tech worked on Bosch e-bike drive systems, which are often held in the highest regard, and I really think that tracks. It's one of the best feeling hub motor and torque sensor combos I have personally tested. I also really appreciated the sporty handling. The bike's fully rigid frame also sports a thru-axle in the front end. It is ultra stiff and responsive, and it just makes it feel lively. I loved how it handled at speed, and it inspired confidence going into corners. And on a final note, I've said this on the majority of bikes I've reviewed from Ride1Up, and I'll say it again here with this one. When you start listing off the parts that the bike has and adding them up in your head, you would expect this to go for another $200 or $300 more than what they are charging. From what I can tell, they value pack this ride as much as possible, so I love the value proposition of the total package. Now let's review the rest of the bike. The V3 has a removable 360 watt-hour battery integrated into the down tube. This is a new feature as the V2 had a non-removable battery. The drivetrain of our test bike is a nice Shimano Dior 10-speed with an 11 to 36 tooth cassette and a 42 tooth chainring. This setup was a good choice for hitting the bike's Class 3 28 mph speeds. The bike also comes in a single-speed belt drive version as well. The Roadster V3 comes with Tektro 2-piston hydraulic brakes with 160mm rotors front and rear. The tires are 700 by 45C Schwalbe G1 RS gravel tires. They have a Kevlar bead and can be ran tubeless. Ride1Up included some nice fenders over both tires to keep you dry when gliding through puddles. There is an integrated taillight with the rear fender and a headlight included as well. There's a nice Cell Royale Vivo saddle, and then let's move up to the cockpit. You have a 680mm bar with a slight 15-degree back sweep. The grips on either side are Ergotech rubber lock-ons, and then also note how the stem hides the cables, which helps a lot in the clean look of the bike. That's just a really nice touch. Now on the left is the control panel and display combo. It's a bright and crisp OLED display, and at the bottom of it you'll find the bike's throttle. On the right you have the shifters and a little bell too. Finally, there are bosses for a bottle cage and mounting points to add on a rear rack if you choose. The Roadster weighs in at 44 pounds according to our scales and fits riders from 5'1" up to 6'3" across 3 different frame sizes. Now ours came in this nice mint color, but there's also an onyx black. As of today, its MSRP is $1295, which is actually packing a ton of value given the names I just listed off. Now let's jump into our testing and see how all of that adds up on the roads. Our first test is the brake test, where I bring every bike we review up to 20 miles per hour, stop, measure the distance, and run it again for a total of 3 times to take the average. The Roadster V3 scored an average stopping distance of 24 feet 4 inches. Now compared to a class average of 23 feet 9 inches, it was a touch on the long side, but still plenty safe. Now the braking choice was good in my book. About half the city bikes that we get in for testing opt for mechanical brakes. A big part of the reason this style of bike tends to have a longer total stopping average. Now, either a mechanical system or a hydraulic one has its pros and cons, but in general, I advocate for hydraulics on e-bikes. Faster traveling bikes need greater stopping power in my opinion, so I'm really happy to see that they went with that here. The brakes are decently modular, meaning you can squeeze down lightly just to slow down, or really bear down to come halting to a stop. Since they are Tektros, you can easily and cheaply part the replacements once they've worn down. It is really easy to toggle between different class settings on the Roadster V3 if you prefer Class 2 20-mile-per-hour speeds or Class 3 at 28 miles per hour. Let's head out to our speed test where I'll show you what each of the bike's 4 PAS levels can do in either of the class settings. All right, so this is the speed test for the Roadster V3. Right now going about like a middle gear, going about 10.5 miles per hour. Bike moves pretty well without any motor help, but let's go ahead and kick that motor on. So in eco mode, I mean, it kicks on pretty quick. I can feel it instantly making things a little bit easier, a little bit lighter on my feet. I'm gonna move through a couple of gears. Starts picking up a little bit of steam, going about 14 miles per hour. Doing pretty good in eco mode. Move up to tour. So again, I can't really hear the motor. I can feel it. It's working on some of the senses, not the others. Motor is whisper quiet though. Going about 16.5 miles per hour in tour. Move up into sport. Sport's the most noticeable jump so far. Eco is a step, tour is a step. Sport's more of a jump, feels like. It makes it a lot easier. Yeah, pushing up to about 19.3 miles per hour. Gonna top off here at the Class 2 speed limit of 20. We'll go ahead and move into boost mode, kind of finish things off. Yeah, going a little bit above that 20.2 miles per hour, but yeah, overall, I mean, we're still in boost mode. I'm not hearing that motor. It's doing a really good job staying quiet. Let's see how it does in Class 3 mode though. All right, now we've got things changed up. It's now in Class 3 mode. Going, still starting off at about 10.5 miles per hour. Let's go ahead and kick into eco. Let's see what changes, if anything. So I mean, I'm starting out very similarly, which is I can kind of feel it a little bit lighter at the pedals. I can not really hear much at all. I seem to be going a little bit faster in eco, going up to 14.5, just about 15 miles per hour. Switch things up to tour. Tour, same thing. As soon as you change modes, you can tell it's responded pretty quickly and instantly, making this easier. Going about 18 miles per hour here in tour mode. Just jump. Still no motor noise. So about 19 miles per hour. We'll get through this turn and switch things up to sport. So here's where I can start to hear the motor hum to life a little bit. Already reached 10th gear. Have to move my legs a little bit faster to keep that same amount of pressure. But I mean, not a loud motor at all. Going 22 miles per hour pretty comfortably. Finish things off, see what boost does. Yeah, boost is definitely making light work of this. Still can barely hear that motor. I can hear it, but I'm hearing more wind than anything. As this bike starts picking up, going upwards of 26 miles per hour, but it's still climbing, it's still going pretty easily. I don't think I've reached the top yet. I've increased my pedal cadence a little bit, but again, that's just keeping up so I can keep the same amount of pressure, get the same amount of reward. Reaching 27 miles per hour. So yeah, I think I'm getting about 27 miles per hour, topping out, but I mean, all in all, that was really impressive. Very quiet, but very subtle, but very noticeable assist. Let's talk all about that a little bit more back in the studio. All right, throttle test for the Roadster V3, and a mark, get set, go. So it kind of starts out a little bit more mild, a little more gentle, but it's gaining steam as we go. Climbing. It's about 18.5. It's slowly gaining in speed. 20. There we go. Man, I love it when a bike has noticeable differences in power at each level. Let's go ahead and quickly detail those speeds and throw the graphs up on the screen. So in Class 2, I had 11.1 miles per hour without any motor help. In Eco, I went 14 miles per hour, 16.2 in Tour, 19.2 in Sport, and finally Boost finished with 20.2 miles per hour. Over on the Class 3 side of things, Eco went a bit quicker to 15 miles per hour, then 19 in Tour, 21.8 in Sport, and finally I hit 27.1 in Boost. I would say my biggest takeaway was that the Mevice hub motor does a great job at staying out of the way of the ride, but it undeniably enhances it. Now, only in the higher two modes could I even hear the motor, but it was less loud than the wind noise. Each PAS level feels distinct, and noticeably lighter effort is required at each higher setting. The throttle's acceleration is more on the mild side, but I really don't mind that. This bike was made to be pedaled first and foremost, and just having the throttle to start moving or to take a really quick break is just a bonus to me. Ride1Up claims the Roadster V3 can go between 20 and 40 miles. To test that, we did two different range tests. One with this bike in eco mode, and then after charging the battery back up, we did another with the bike set to boost. Now, both tests were done in Class 2 settings to be comparable with the other e-bikes. In our maxed assist test with the bike in boost mode, the bike went 16.8 miles in 54 minutes for a ride time to the tune of 18.5 miles per hour. On our min assist test with the bike in eco, we got 49 miles in 4 hours and 5 minutes of ride time with an 11.7 mile per hour average. So I have a few different thoughts on this test. First things first, I think these were good results. You saw from the speed test that the eco mode does provide pretty significant assistance to the rider, even at the low setting. So getting nearly 50 miles is a great result, especially for a 360 watt-hour battery. The max test was a quicker and shorter trip of just 17 miles, but that's comparable to many city bikes with batteries with similar capacities. Efficiency was definitely better on the eco side and just average on the boost side by the numbers when I compared it with the other e-bikes we've tested. Overall, it's a lightweight and efficient bike, so unless I was on a huge hill, I didn't really use boost a ton, as I could get it going pretty fast with a healthy dose of leg power. In my personal riding, I was in the middle two modes for most of the time anyway. I liked the middle ground between going a little faster but getting more battery life, and I'd say that those modes are where I'd expect most people to find themselves riding on the Roadster V3. Now, if this doesn't sound like enough range for you, then I have some good news. It looks like Ride1Up does have a range extender battery that'll tack on another 70% of capacity. So that can easily put to rest any range anxiety woes. Next up was the hill test. We have a local trail known as Hellhole, where bikes have to climb a third of a mile up an average 12% grade. We do that one time in pedal and one time in throttle with our dedicated hill tester, Justin, for consistency. I'll throw it to him to show you how the Roadster did.
All right, we are out here on the Ride1Up Roadster V3 doing the throttle test, and I'm gonna be honest, I have about zero expectation that it's gonna get up on throttle. That does not usually happen. With a bike like this, the throttle just usually doesn't have enough power to kind of get up the hill with this, you know, lighter weight city style bike. And I think I'm correct. Oh, yeah. So didn't quite make it up there. Again, kind of not unexpected. It's exactly what I thought would happen. Made it about that far. So we'll turn around and do the pedal test and see how it does. Okay, we're back out on the Ride1Up V3 Roadster, this time on the pedal test in boost, and curious to see how this one does. It felt like it had quite a lot of power actually coming into the hill on boost. Right now I'm right about 10.5 miles an hour, 9.4, downshifted a few times, 9.1, 8.6, 8.8. The motor's very quiet. And more powerful than I would have expected for this city commuter. You know, they went with 500 watt-hour motor, and I'm feeling that extra power, especially relative to other super lightweight kind of city commuters. So I'll let you listen to the motor through here. So you probably can't hear hardly any of that. It is very quiet. The engagement is very smooth. As I shift through the hill, this Dior, you know, drivetrain that they've got is very, very well spec for a bike this price. And like I said, decent power. So yes, I'm breathing a little bit, but I've not had to push as hard as I normally do on a bike this style. So we'll check the tape and see how it does. But I think it's gonna be pretty good for, again, that city commuter style bike.
On the two hill tests, the Roadster V3 both met and exceeded our expectations. In the throttle test, the bike was unable to make it up the hill. This was far from shocking. The next city e-bike with a hub motor in the 250 to 500 watt range that makes it up the hill is gonna be the first. On the pedal test though, this bike set new records amongst city bikes with a time of 1 minute and 32 seconds with an average of 11.8 miles per hour. This is our new fastest city bike by a comfortable 7 seconds up the hill. So what was the secret sauce in this recipe that had it beating out the other city e-bikes that we've tested? Well, the motor had the most torque of any of the motors we've tested on this hill before, so that was definitely an advantage. 50 Newton meters of torque is a lot on a lightweight bike like this, since most of them we've seen it actually do it with 40. It also had more gearing options than most, so it's easier to find the ideal efficient gear while climbing, which definitely helps. We've tested a few other Mi-Vice motors in the past, and the theme of running fairly quietly while giving a significant boost is present throughout, so it's safe to say we're quickly becoming fans of the brand and like the choice of it on this bike. The bottom line here is that the Roadster V3, both by the numbers and by feel, is one of the best climbing city e-bikes that we've tested. All of our standardized testing is done, but let's head out one last time to take a ride and just talk about the feel and some of its defining characteristics on this bike. All right, so when it comes to city e-bikes, I definitely place kind of like a higher emphasis and premium on handling, you know? If I'm riding something and it's, you know, especially if it's like a densely populated environment, a lot of pedestrians, a lot of cars opening up into bike, you know, their doors into bike lanes, things like that, I wanna make sure it's got very good control. And I think that is one area in which the Roadster V3 does shine. It does feel like a precision instrument. I mean, it's a very stiff, very rigid frame, but that just gives it great handling ability. It just feels like with the lightest touch, you can kind of start moving in a different direction, but that's not in like a twitchy sense. It's a very precise, you know, almost precision of like a scalpel, really. It's just really nice how you can kind of have that control, you know, as I try and show off and do a little bob and weave in between the lines of the road here. But overall, I just think it adds to a really nice ride because it feels very natural, very intuitive to use as you're kind of trying to navigate, you know, some of those city streets. Now, part of that, like I said, it's rigid. It's got a fully aluminum frame. The fork itself also made of aluminum. It just kind of adds to that handling, that control, especially with this, you know, 680 millimeter wide handlebar here, which I really like. It's got a little bit of a back sweep, but just very comfortable, very easy to maneuver with. It's also rolling on this tire. I love this tire. I thought it was a really good choice for this bike. It's a Schwalbe G1, kind of like a gravel tire. Got a little bit of a tiny tread pattern down the middle, but mostly it's, you know, fairly smooth, fairly efficient. It's a lot more chunkier in the shoulders just to give you some better grip, better traction in the corners. And overall, it does a really good job. I mean, it felt very planted out on the roads. Overall, again, just performance-wise, things have been going pretty great. Now, one thing that Ride1Up did with this model that I was really happy to see, it's available technically in 3 different frame sizes. So there is a mid-step, which is the smallest, then they have the small for this, you know, high-step frame, and then there's the large is what I'm riding on. Now, I've reviewed almost all of Ride1Up's e-bikes, and I feel like whenever I review them, there's a similar con, which is, you know, they have a step through and a high step, and that's it. They're one size fits all, and people on the margins are often squeezed. This is one time where I don't feel that's the case. This is really good sizing for someone, for me at 6'1". Now, across those 3 frame sizes, Ride1Up says you can fit riders from 5'1" up to 6'3", and I think there's some validity to that, because again, I'm feeling pretty right at home here on this large frame, so I like that you can get, you know, different sizing choices to kind of figure out your fit. On this frame that I'm on, I think there's about 9 inches of adjustment you can make at the saddle, so, you know, different heights can tailor to them. But overall, just a really nice fit, really good handling ride. Now, as an extension of that handling talk, let's talk one more time about the motor, but a little bit more about their torque sensor on it. So, torque sensors are a thing I think we take for granted. Most mid-drive e-bikes feel great. We often say things like they feel natural, it feels, you know, precise, and that's very true of most mid-drives. I think like 90% of them get it right, and then we're trying to figure out, you know, the marginal winners. The torque sensor hub motor combination, I think, is a little bit trickier to really nail. Some of them are overly sensitive, some of them still just aren't as as natural feeling as you'd want. But here on the Roadster V3, I think they've done a really good job of this one, because it does feel as an extension of yourself, kind of going back to that precision and control that I want on a city e-bike, because I don't want something that is just zooming and blasting ahead. So I'm constantly like riding the brakes, trying to navigate other people on a crowded bike path, or, you know, some pedestrians. It's just a natural extension of yourself. You can still kind of pick your spots and just get to them a little bit faster, a little bit more naturally. I also love that there is no motor cutoff through the brakes here, so you can technically, hitting the throttle, hitting the brake, as you can see, it's still going. But I actually like that, because sometimes when you tap the brakes, you can lose more momentum than you want to. It takes a second to pick it back up. It's not the case here. Again, it's just very dialed in. Precision instrument is just kind of the term that keeps popping back into my mind. I think the Roadster V3 just does a lot well. That really drives on that quality. And again, for a bike that's fairly lighter, by e-bike standards, closer to 40 pounds, this is going for only like $1,300 right now. I think they've done a lot right to build a good quality product. The previous Roadster was only available in a single speed option. This time around, you can choose either the single speed belt drive or the Shimano Dior 10-speed. Our tester was the 10-speed, and it just felt like it had great and practical range to work with. Now, one of the few detractors of the bike for me was the pedals. The flat pedals with grip tape are more beach cruisery, and I prefer something with some kind of teeth to grip my shoes into. I'm also complaining about pedals though, so if that's all I'm finding to knock on the bike, then I think the bike is doing pretty well so far. Now, we're firm believers that a bike's look is not everything, but it is important, and I'll just give credit where it's due. This is just a really clean looking bike. The stem and fork have cable routing, so almost no wires on this thing are visible, along with a really good paint job and a frame that doesn't have large weld seams. I mean, it just really looks stunning. So if you've come this far in the review, well, thank you for one, but let's just recap what you need to know walking away. This bike had a terrific feel. Whether flying around at speed, hugging tightly into corners, tackling a hill, or whatever else, it just felt tight and precise. The motor is pretty quiet, but super effective. It was just a great ride. I really love the Schwalbe tires and the Dior drivetrain. I just love it when something is affordable and doesn't give me no-name products. The track record of these items are well-deserved. When I reach the end of a review and look back at my list of cons and all I have is the pedals weren't my favorite written down, I think it's a sign that the vital things were done well, and now we're veering into personal preferences that didn't align. That's a really good sign. To me, the third version of the Roadster was a big improvement of what was already a good bike. It's the type of bike that will have us updating our list of top recommendations, as it left that strong of an impression on us. So if you're looking for something lighter weight and that'll give you an active riding experience, the Roadster V3 is a really good one to pick up. That's gonna do it for this review. Let me know your thoughts and what questions you have down in the comments. You can check out the links for the written review and for current pricing. And that link is an affiliate link, so if you choose to purchase the bike, it does help us out when you click that before going to make your purchase. We live off of audience support, so thank you in advance. That's gonna do it for us today. I'm Griffin with Electric Bike Report. We'll see you on the next review.